Hi friends, so I found out that the video was kind of blurry in class today, so to help you out, I'm going to go through and do our 2.0 examples. So 2.0 example 1, 2, and 3. So you can take a look at those. So what we're going to do and what we discussed in class is our very first move is to write down D equals M equals and B equals. So once we have the variables down, we're going to try and figure out what we got in terms of the information in the problem. So what the problem says is a rock with a mass. So right here it says mass of the rock is 5.92 grams. So I'm going to put that right next to my M. My mass is 5.92 grams. It was dropped into a graduated cylinder containing 20 milliliters of water. So this is the volume of water, not of the rock. So there's 20 milliliters of water in a graduated cylinder. And then it says this caused the water level to rise up to 23.7 milliliters. So what this volume really represents, this is the volume of rock and our water. This 20 milliliters, that's just water only. So in order to get just our volume, that is the rock, we need to get rid of the volume that is due to water. So what we're going to do is a subtraction problem. I'm going to take my 23.7, which is my volume with the rock and the water, and I'm going to subtract from it the volume of just the water. So my water only is 20 milliliters. Okay, so I'm going to take 23.7 minus 20, and that tells me that my volume of my rock is 3.7 milliliters. So now I've got my mass in grams, I've got my volume in milliliters of just the rock, and so I'm going to use my density equation, and so D is equal to, so if we look at this last part, it says, what is the density? So that what is telling me that I have a question mark with density. Okay, so density is equal to my mass. So mass is my N, that's my top number. So I put 5.92 on top. And then volume is my bottom number. So I'm going to put 23.7 milliliters lies 3.7. So 3.7, which is just the volume of the rock. I'm going to put that on the bottom, and that's milliliters. So now I've got my mass of just the rock, which is 5.92. I have the volume of just the rock, which is 3.7 milliliters. I'm going to put that into my calculator, and when I do, I get 1.6, and then it's grams divided by milliliters. Okay? So again, when I'm typing that into my calculator, this line right here means divide by. So I'm taking my 5.92 divided by my 3.7 milliliters. I hit enter and I get 1.6 grams per milliliter. So we're going to do the next problem. So I'm going to go over the next two problems. And so my next problem, we're going to start just the way we did with the other one. I'm going to put my D equals, my M equals, my B equals, and I'm going to figure out what I have. So in the problem it says determine the density. So determine is another one of those context clues that lets me know question mark, right? So things like determine or calculate or what is or find, those are going to be our context clues that are going to tell us that we're going to be looking for something. So determine the density. So this is what our question mark is going to be next to, is density. So density we don't know. So hopefully it gives us a mass and a volume. So it says of an object that has a mass of 30 grams. So our mass, our M, is 30 grams. And a volume of 200 milliliters. So it straight up tells us our V is 200 milliliters. So we've got our mass, we've got a volume, we're looking for density. We're going to set up our problem. So remember that density is equal to mass divided by our volume. So now we're going to put our numbers in there to solve. So density is going to equal my mass, which is 30 grams, divided by my volume, which is 200 milliliters. I'm going to plug that into my calculator. Remember that this line means divide, so I'm going to type into my calculator 30 divided by 200, and when I do that, I'm going to get 0.15. So my final answer is 0.15, and then this is grams divided by, so divided by milliliters, and that's my final answer. So we're going to do our last problem here. I'm going to start the problem out just the same as I did the other ones. So my density equals, my mass equals, my volume equals. So I'm going to write down my variables there. And then I'm going to see that it says a copper cube has a side length of 0.8. So we're going to come back to that in just a minute. And a mass of 4.59 grams. So we have a mass of 4.59 grams. And it really should say here, what is the density of copper? So that was my little typo. I forgot to put that on there. So we're looking for the density of copper. By the way, Cu is shorthand for copper. So volume. So we've got this thing here. It tells us that we have a cube. We have a perfect cube. So one of the things that we have to remember from way back when in our elementary school or middle school math is that a cube has equal sides. So all the sides are the same length in a cube. So the length, the width, and the height, they're all exactly the same in a cube. So that means that this length, this height, and this width, they're all the same length. And up here in our problem, it tells us that that's going to be 0.8. So we've got 0.8 centimeters here, 0.8 centimeters here, and 0.8 centimeters here. So all the dimensions are 0.8. So again, back to our middle school math, the volume of a cube can be found by multiplying the length times the width times the height. So the length, the width, and the height are all the same. The side length, which is 0.8. So I'm going to put those in there. So I'm going to take my 0.8 centimeters for my length. I'm going to multiply it by 0.8 centimeters for my width. And I'm going to multiply 0.8 centimeters for my height. So length times width times height. So 0.8 times 0.8 times 0.8. When we do that, this is going to equal 0.512 centimeters. And that's going to be to the third power, cubed, because we have centimeters times centimeters times centimeters. So now we have a mass of 4.59 grams. We have a volume of 0.512 centimeters cubed. So now it's just a matter of putting that into our density equation. So density is going to equal my mass, which is 4.59 grams, divided by my volume, which is 0.512 centimeters cubed. And so now I'm going to divide that. So I'm going to put that into my calculator. And I'm going to put 4.59 divided by 0.512. I'm going to hit enter. And my answer is going to come out to be 8.96. And that's going to be grams on top and centimeters cubed on the bottom. Just a little side note of information that you should know. Centimeters cubed, we typically use centimeters cubed when talking about volume of a solid. We use milliliters when we're talking about liquids. Okay, so that's really the difference. But here's the cool thing, cubic centimeter, so 1 cubic centimeter is the same thing as 1 milliliter, okay? But we just reserve the cubic centimeters because things that are solid tend to have a length, a width, and a height, okay? Whereas a liquid doesn't really have a shape to it, so we use milliliters for liquid. All right, there you go.